Hi there folks, and welcome to another clip here on my YouTube channel. Before we start into a new topic, I would simply like to say thank you for the latest clip you liked and the couple of views I enjoyed. And now, of course, I would like to remind you, of course, leave some thumbs up, and if you like to check into the channel, please, as well. All right, let's speak about the current monetary policy of a couple of important central banks. Regarding the fact that the Central Bank of Canada, so the so-called Bank of Canada, BOC, started with that kind of a tapering, it might be interesting to have a look at the other central banks as well. Because of course the Federal Reserve and Fed Chief Powell always tells the market that it is not the time to talk and to speak about tapering, but I have the feeling, and maybe you guys have the same, that this kind of feeling won't be lasting very long, because maybe he has no chance to tell the market in a couple of months, well, we might be on a way of tapering in the beginning of 2022. So just a feeling. As I always say, and I always tell you out there, this is nothing like advice. This is just a topic, a little bit of some ideas I bring in, and maybe you have another idea and just have a talk with me and simply add a comment here on my channel. Well, have a look at the Federal Reserve and have a look at the current Fed projections at the dot plot, for example, or on top of that, if you have a look at the CME website, the Fed Watch tool, it doesn't look like we have a Fed rate hike the next month to come, so it will be lasting until 2022 if there is something like a movement. The probabilities are still very, very low, so it won't happen in 2021. Probabilities show us that a possible hike is going to be starting in the first or second quarter 2022 with a first small hike. If there is anything about Fed tapering, what could that mean? First of all, if you don't have a clue what is tapering, it is something like taking back all these kind of purchase programs. So the Federal Reserve right now takes at least 120 billion US dollars buying, for example, US Treasuries, in that case up to or at least 80 billion US dollars pumping into US Treasuries, and on top of that at least 40 billion US dollars pumping into the mortgage-backed securities, for example. And of course this is kind of crazy, and it sounds crazy because this is a lot of money. And of course, on top of that, you have to think about the gigantic stimulus, for example, from the Trump administration in December 2020, when we were talking about 900 billion US dollars, then the 1.9 trillion from the Biden administration, and another big bomb stimulus, the big bazooka, coming up with that kind of a 2 trillion infrastructure pact, maybe coming in summer or whatever and whenever it comes. A lot of money, a lot of liquidity circling around, and it's a question if this kind of monopoly or whatever the game is called will be lasting. But be sure it's not only the Federal Reserve doing that kind of crazy stuff. You have a look at the Bank of Japan with negative interest rates. And you have a look at a couple of other banks like the Swiss National Bank or, for example, the Bank of England. And especially we have a look at our region here, the Eurozone, at the European Central Bank. And we don't do any kind of better. We do something like paying a lot of money into a system, pumping a lot of money into the system with programs called asset purchase programs. So we take 20 billion euros every month, paying that into asset-backed securities, corporate bonds, mortgage-backed security stuff, and of course bonds, state bonds, sovereign bonds, and stuff like that. And on top of that, since March 2020, since all this kind of so-called pandemic emergency purchase program started, so-called PEP, they pumped that stuff up to 750 billion euros and widened that kind of a program, the so-called PEP program, twice already. And right now, from the date of December 2020, this kind of a package has a volume of 1.85 trillion euros. And they are buying everything from German sovereign bonds or Dutch sovereign bonds down to Greek bonds. And we all know, for example, that a couple of bonds they buy usually would have something like a big D for default. But they simply buy all that stuff, and they buy that themselves somewhere. And if you take it like a picture, they're pumping money into a system, buying sovereign bonds and other papers and commercial papers, and putting them into their basement, into their cellar, or how you call it. Well, this kind of a game is possibly going into direction 2023, and the ECB will be in a very bad position if you compare directly to the Federal Reserve. I'll tell you why. This so-called tapering is an effect which causes a lot of trouble for the ECB. And that is the reason, just my opinion, that is the reason that the US dollar might be getting a little bit more stronger than the euro in the next 1 or 2 years to come, just because of the reason that when the US is going to start a little bit of a tapering, the ECB has to do something, but it can't do anything. So it is absolutely a disadvantage. So that's just my take on that. It's just my view. If you have anything else to any kind of another idea or stuff like that, just give me a comment. And of course, always, as I say, always feel free to leave a thumbs up here on my video. And of course, would be happy to see if you check into my YouTube channel as well. So far so good. It's Friday, it's the weekend, it's called TGIF, and hopefully you guys find a sunny place out there and recharge your batteries, as I always say, and have a happy weekend. Thank you very much. Bye bye.